Let's pray. Dear God in heaven, we thank you for the Holy Sabbath. We thank you for gathering us together. We thank you for the wonderful singing. May you bless us all and may you be with us as we get into this lesson. May you help us to understand and may you make it clearer in our minds so that we prepare ourselves for everything that is happening in the world so that we'll be found on the right side. We thank you, Lord, for this is our humble prayer. Amen. So I would like to confirm first if my board is visible or if I need to move it.
Are you able to center the camera a bit? I don't know.
Okay, let me start it. Just. Oh, should I?
No. Oh, it's no.
But no.
Yeah, we can see the board.
Okay.
You've got two devices on as well because it's echoing.
Who is that? Yeah, Queen.
Okay. I don't know if it's still producing some echoes because I just have one device that is connected.
No, it sounds great.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at the conflict between the Israeli and the Palestine. So, as we all know, this is something that is happening, and on all the news channel, everyone is just talking about this conflict between the Israelites and the Palestinians. So I just saw it maybe fit to just maybe discuss about it and see how it aligns with our message and what message it can convey to us as a people of God at this moment in time. So before I look into that, I would like to look at the lines, the structure of our reform lines. So on the board, if you can see, I've put the Millerite history, like the line of the Millerites, and 1798 is the time of the end. 1840 is the second waymark. 1850, the Sunday Law. 1861, which is the close of probation. And 1863 is the second Advent. So the reason why I've decided to put this line first is because I just wanted to refresh our memory with regards to reform lines, because whatever we are doing as a movement, we'll be referring to the structure of the reform lines. They're like a guideline in all our studies. Thank you, Nyasha and family, for the wonderful singing. I liked the Wemax. It reminds me of in Zimbabwe when we used to sing that song first before we start the lesson. So thank you, it was such a blessing. So looking at this reform line, the Millerite history, the reason why I've started with the Millerite history is because it is the alpha of our line. So whenever we want to explain our time best, we best look at the Millerite history because it is the alpha, and the line of the 144,000, it is the omega. So the Millerite history best explains our line. I know this is a line of failure, but for us to be a line of success, we will be drawing lessons and looking at the failures of the Millerite people, then we'll be able to correct them accordingly. So this is going to be our guideline in this lesson this morning. So like I've said before, the time of the end is 1798, 1840, the second waymark, 1850, the third waymark, which is the Sunday Law, the close of probation, 1861, and 1863 as the second advent. So if we want to put the line of the omega history, which is the line of the 144,000, which is our experience, we will start with 1989. Yeah, 1989. Then don't worry about my crooked lines. I missed my ruler today. So 2001 becomes the second waymark. Obviously, the third waymark is the Sunday law. Then we have the close of probation. Then we have the second coming, the second advent. So these two lines here, this is the alpha. Oh, this is the alpha. Sorry, I missed the signs. This is the alpha, and this is the omega. So these two lines, the history that I'm much concerned about is the history between the second waymark and the Sunday law. We know that this is where we are. First of all, we need to ascertain where we are on the reform lines. So 2001, we know that according to the repeating patterns, there are supposed to be waymarks, like 2 sub-waymarks in each dispensation. So we have the increase of knowledge. Let me use another color. We have the increase of knowledge, and we have the formalization of the message, right? So in our dispensation, the increase of knowledge, what will be our increase of knowledge? I love interactive lessons. Would like to chip in? Natalie, what will be our increase of knowledge in this line, in the line of the 144,000?
I knew you'd ask me. I was just about what what line are you on? Are you talking about gender equality after 2001 on the line of 144,000? What do you want, the year or the subject?
Whatever you want to give me, because I'm looking at this line. I would like to have the 2 sub-waymarks, which is between the second waymark and the third waymark.
I won't give you the date, but I'm just wondering. I'm wondering where your question is coming from with regards to the context of your study.
Okay, you get it as we get along.
What? Sorry.
You understand this when we go forward with the lesson. I'm just laying a foundation of my lesson. I'm just refreshing our understanding of the reform lines.
I don't know what you're looking for there. I just thought it would be gender equality.
Okay, that's fine.
Or if you're looking to do with Islam, then it would be it would be 2021. It would be Kabul, wouldn't it? I don't know what you're looking for.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm looking for, I just want to put like what I've done here, 1989 as the term of the end, 2001, the second waymark, Sunday law, COP, second advent. I'm not putting any subject yet. I'm just putting those like dates that
I'm not
makes us
wondering the
refresh our
question,
memory.
Melania. You asking the question about the 2 little waymarks you put in between
Yes.
2009. So you're looking for like Rafi and Pani, and I'm not sure where you, because I don't put. I'm not sure if we put that there, but that's my opinion. But is that what you're looking for, Rafi and Pani?
Yes, that's it.
Thanks.
That's it. Thank you. All right. So thank you, Natalie. This will be Rafia and this will be Panyam. Okay. So when you're looking at those 2 waymarks, Rafia becomes the increase of knowledge, or it is the increase of knowledge, and Panyam is the formalization. So exactly, this is what I've been looking for. So if you look at this, for us to be at the Sunday law, to reach this waymark of the Sunday law, we must have the experience of these 2 waymarks here so that we understand the Sunday law better. If you look at the increase of knowledge, or Rafia, it is the increase of knowledge of the Sunday law. So we are talking about issues that are going to happen here. It is referring to the Sunday law. So for someone to understand the Sunday law, you must understand what Rafia is, what it entails, And furthermore, you need to understand the formalization of this message, of this test. Remember, Sunday law is the great test. It is the test. So for you to be able to pass this test, you must have the increase of knowledge, and you must have more information or the formalization of this message of the Sunday law. So looking at this subject of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, we need to understand the issues that are happening at this moment in time, knowing that we are in the agitation of the Sunday law. This is where we are here, right? This is where we are, and we are finally approaching the Sunday law. So these issues that are happening in the world, the external events, they help us to understand what we ought to do internally, or they point to things that we as a people of God are supposed to notice. And if there's something that we need to do, the external events are like a mirror, are like showing us, giving us a reflection of where we are going. So right now, if we look at this conflict here, I know the conflict has been there for quite a long time. And now it seems to be the heightening point of it all. So it's very important for us to look at this conflict here of Israel and Palestine, so that we understand issues to do with the Sunday law and what we are supposed to do. So first of all, we are going to look at the history of these two groups, the Israel and the Palestinians. We are going to see where they originated, what happens, what is it that led to this conflict. So this is what we are going to do now. I don't know if someone has something to say. Yeah. Okay. I'll take a silence to mean that there's nothing to say at the moment. So, okay. So looking at the history of this conflict, we are going to look at why the Jews migrated to Palestine. So I'm going to read from my notes here. I'll share my notes later. Okay, so the reason why this Jews migrated to Palestine is because for many years, many Jews have been living in Europe, and to them it was the correct space for them to be. But then there was a lot of persecution, about 200 years, and this persecution led to the Jewish people migrating from Europe, going back to Palestine. We know that Palestine is regarded as the ancestral land for the Jews. This is where they originated. But then, because of the few years back, they migrated to Europe and they found it a good space for them to be. But then in the Europe where they were living, those the conflicts that happened, or the persecutions, they led them to move from Europe and going back to Palestine again. So I'm going to look at the correct words. Okay, let me read from here. So roughly 200 years ago, over 99% of the Jews in the world lived in Europe, with the Jews, with the remaining fraction of the percentage living in Palestine. So however, due to the widespread anti-Semitism and persecution, the Jews decided that Europe was not an ideal place for them to live, and they needed to relocate. The new location of choice was Palestine, the home of their Jewish ancestors. So in the 1800s, the first wave of immigration began, which became known as the Zionist movement. The first wave ended in 1903. Then a second wave started that year, which lasted until 1914. So yeah. So we see that in the 1800s, they started a movement called the Zionist movement. And this was a movement of the Israelites from Europe, going back to Palestine. So the Israelites originally are from Palestine, but they moved to Europe, saying that Europe seems to be the best place for them to be. But because of the conflicts and the persecution that they faced in Europe, they now moved back to Palestine, and this was known as the Zionist movement. And this one, it ended in 1903. And from that year again, a second wave started from 1903 until 1914. And what do we know 1914 to be?
One of the World War One, isn't it? Something like that.
Yes, thank you very much, David. It is the end of the World War I, right? And during this time, the persecution was just grown up. And these Israelites could no longer take the persecution. We know this is when until 1914, yes. And then the third and the fourth waves, they took place again. And these people kept on moving back to Palestine. So we know that there was a third and a fourth. And these people kept on going back to Palestine, where they thought to be their ancestral place. But then the problem was that the people who were living in Palestine by that time, they were also thought to be the people who belongs to that place. And these people were the Muslims who lived in Palestine. It did not go well with them that these people are coming back again to live and to make a formal state. So to them, it was like a provocation of some sort. So what did the Palestinians do? The Palestinians now, they started this conflict with the Israelites because they did not take it well that they were coming back in such huge numbers. So I'm going to read again. The first wave ended in 1903. Then a second wave started that year, which lasted until 1914. The third and the fourth waves took place after the first two, which brought hundreds of thousands of Jews to Palestine, many of whom were fleeing the Holocaust in Europe. The only thing that stood in their way were the people who already occupied Palestine. The Arabs don't favor the influx of Jews in Palestine, which many of them viewing it as an European colonialism. So you see, the issue is seeing them coming back was like a European colonialism. So whenever we are talking about colonialism, we are talking about restriction of people's rights. So to the Palestinians, to these Arabs that were in Palestine, they thought it to be our rights are being taken away, our liberties, our freedom. So these people have come to take away our freedom, our liberty, and everything. So what they do? So the third and the fourth, we talked about these ones that brought thousands and thousands back into Palestine. So the Arabs didn't favor the influx of Jews in Palestine, many of them viewing it as European colonialism. it did take long for the hatred Arabs had against the Jews to turn into violence. So this hatred that the Arabs had, it turned eventually, like quickly into violence. And in 1902, when an Arab was shot by a Jewish guard, over 200 Arabs attacked a Jewish settlement. So here we are seeing that there is an issue that happened in 1802 or 1902. 1802. So this is an incident. I didn't want to like look much into it, but we just know that there was one Palestinian that was shot by a Jewish guard. We don't know what the circumstances were that led to that, but because of that single shooting, what did the Arabs do? They were looking for an opportunity. They were waiting for a time that they can strike the Israelites because already they have hatred. So because of this single thing, the Palestinians or the Arabs took it as an advantage to attack the Jews. And many of the Jews, we had that about 200 of the Arabs, they attacked a Jewish settlement. So because of one person, they went and attacked a whole settlement. So this one, you see, it's now a violence, a big violence, which resulted from the hatred that these people had for the Israelites. So this was the only one of the first actions of violence between the two groups. And even though Jews were able to split Palestine into two countries, Israel for the Jews and the rest for the Arabs, violence still continues until this day. So what the Israelites were looking for was going back into their ancestral land, and they'll have a portion for themselves, and the Arabs will have a portion for themselves as well. So the issue was like dividing Palestine into two, the other for the Israelites and the rest for the Arabs. But the Arabs didn't want this. And in doing this, Israel was backed up by the rest of the European countries. It was like, yeah, it's probably good, including Britain, that these people go back and have a portion of their land, and the Palestinians or the Arabs have another portion. But the Palestinians didn't want this. So this history, as you have seen, this is how their conflict started. And from then, there were attacks one after the other, and it continued for years. And now, during this time, until October last year, there is a rampant succession of disputes between these two groups because of these settlement issues. So now I want to look at in depth this conflict. So the history of Israelites' conflict with Palestine dates back to the 1800s. In the late 1800s, persecution of the Jewish in Europe led to the formation of the Zionist movement in 1897, aiming to create a Jewish state in Palestine. As Jews moved in, tensions with Arabs escalated, especially during the British control over World War I. Britain's support for Zionist ambitions and the two-nation theory fueled violence, marked by the events like the Jaffa riots in 1921. So I'm going to list this riots, Jaffa riots. (1921). This is one of the conflicts. And intensifying the conflicts again, we have the Great Revolution of 1936. There is also I think these ones are the most important one, though I'm not going to look into them in detail. Yeah.
Melania, are you going to mention the Balfour Declaration as well?
Yeah, you can explain it if you would want to.
Yes, okay. It's well, the Balfour Declaration, because you talked about how the Jewish people were sort of displaced, they didn't have a place in Europe. But I think what happened was also in round about 1917 was that the English, the British people signed up a Balfour Declaration in 1917, and it was basically, yeah. So it's called the Balfour, Balfour Declaration, and it was a law that they made in England to recognize the state of Israel for Jewish people, but it's all started from there. So it says it resulted in the upheaval of the lives of Palestinians, which was issued on November 2nd, 1917. That one was.
Okay.
And it was the Zionist aim was to establish a Jewish state. That's what it was meant for.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, Debbie. So you see, what Debbie is saying is that all this that was happening to have Israel going back to Palestine and go and establish a nation of their own, it was all backed up by Britain. So like most of the European countries, they were backing this up and they wanted Israel to have an independent nation. But then those who were in Palestine, the Arabs, they did not want Israel to have an independent nation. They would rather have Israel come and join and just be under the Arabic rule rather than have it as an independent state. So like I've read about having a dual nation, yeah, a two-nation theory. So the two-nation theory is about having Israel and Palestine, two different groups in one nation, but as two different nations. Like to say, this is the Israeli nation and this is the Arabic nation. So this is what Britain and other countries favored and supported. But then the Palestinians, the Arabs did not want that because they wanted to rule over the whole of Palestine. So this is how the conflict all started. So the shooting of this guy, it was like a spark, like to start the whole thing that was already there. So these are other riots, that's the uprisings that happened, they were all like feeding into the same stream. So despite casualties and unrest, Israel officially became a country on May 14, 1948. So May 14, 1948, this is where we have Israel as a nation. So besides all these things, all these fightings and everything, Israel definitely became a nation of its own with its own rulership. But knowing that there has been conflicts with the Arabs, it's automatically it's something that is inevitable to have conflicts with these two. Okay. So this act of Israel becoming a nation on May 14, 1948, it intensifies the conflicts between these two groups. So the subsequent years saw massacres, occupations, United Nations directives, agreements, and continued hostilities with Israel attacks on Gaza in 2008, 2012, 2014, resulting in significant Palestinian casualties. And these complex and enduring conflicts, they persisted for long. So now, because of these attacks, you see that we kept on having like differences, like they were always fighting each other because of this. So this is how the conflict started. It's all about settlement. It's all about living together. So right now, I want to talk about the group that is so much prominent in this conflict, which is the Hamas. So it is very important for us to look what is it that is called the Hamas? What does it mean? And what does it do? Or its contribution to this whole thing. So today, the biggest opponent to Israel is the Hamas. It is the acronym for their full Arabic name, which translated is, when translated, it means Islamic resistant movement. So I'm going to write it here. Can I have this? Oh. Okay, let me just write it here. Sorry. Okay, so the Hamas is not clear. Okay, so the Hamas is an acronym. It is in Arab. This is Arabic, but its name means Islamic resistance, right? Islamic resistance. I'm tempted to write group. Movement, not group. So from its name, you can tell what their intentions or what their job role is to do. So they are like resisting whatever is coming in their way. So it is a group that is designated to resist it, especially the Israelites. So when you're looking for this acronym and this group, what they're supposed to do, I'm going to give a brief history of how it all started in the formation of this group. So the group was formed in 1987 at the beginning of the first Palestinian uprising by a Palestinian refugee in Gaza Strip. Since then, it was grown over to 20,000 members. So it started with one person, then it has grown over to 20,000 members. So it is mainly located in the Gaza Strip, but is also present in the West Bank and the Palestinian refugee camps in other countries. So Hamas is simply a Sunni Muslim group, but it has many roles. So from this, we know that the Muslims have different like groups. So this is from the Sunni group. So this is another group of the Muslims. So this Sunni group is so much radical and it has got many roles. So it is the second biggest political party in the Palestinian territories. It has controlled the Gaza Strip since 2007, after the 2006 legislative elections, where the party won the most seats in that area. So on the other hand, the West Bank is ruled by the Fatah, their rival party. Israel has enforced a blockade since Hamas took over, which has severely weakened the Israelite economy. So Hamas has a military side and was designated as a terrorist group by the United States in 1997. The leaders of Hamas today are Yeshua Shimwa in Gaza and Ismail Haniyeh, who lives in exile. A poll from last summer shows that Palestinians don't like the fact that Gaza Strip and West Bank are not united. So, and more than half would vote to make Haniyeh the president, the one who lives in the Gaza Strip right now. So Hamas wants to destroy the country of Israel and instead form an Islamic Palestinian state. So you see the thing that I've explained at the start of this, that they don't want to have like a two-nation theory in the same area. They would rather have the Israelites, they favor to have their own territory like they are. Yeah, thank you, Natalie. They are nationalistic. They want to have their own nation. Then these ones wants to have their own as well. But then the Hamas, the Arabs, they don't want that. They want to have the Israelites under their control. So they would rather have an Israeli-Palestinian state rather than the one that is divided. So so they want to destroy the nation of Israel so that they can have just one state. So Hamas has conducted many violent tactics to get closer to their goal, including suicidal bombings, kidnappings, rockets, cyber episodes, among others. So the conflict between Hamas and Israel has been on and off for decades. So this is not a 2023 thing. Or 2024 thing. Sorry, Melania. Hi, Katis. Can you? Yeah, I can give you a moment to speak. I didn't get the question in the chat exactly.
I was just clarifying what you said, asking a clarifying question. You said Hamas don't want what? They don't want two states. They don't want Israel and Palestine. They just want Palestine to rule over that whole land. Is that what you said?
Yes, they want the Israelites to come there under their control, like the
Yeah.
Arabs, the Hamas ruling the whole of Palestine, but
Okay.
having Palestinians and Israelites under the same rule. But the Israelites, they want to be independent, to have an Israelite state as they are right now, and the Arabs to have their own as well. So they're sharing the same land, but each and every one of them ruling themselves.
Okay, I was clarifying if Israel want that, if Israel want this two-state thing that you suggested, or do Israel also want to rule over the whole land?
From what I know, from what has been happening for long, Israel,
Currently.
currently, it seems like Israel want to take over again the other side because of what has been going on. But at the start of this Zionist movement, the goal of the Israelites was to just go back to Israel and to establish their own Israelite nation without the Arabs.
So you're suggesting their goals have changed. Israel's goals have changed.
That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? I've been reading up about it, if you don't mind, Melania.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, I was going to say, I've been looking at it right back. So when they first got to settle in there, it was actually Israel who started up this whole thing. Because when they went there, the Palestinians were very kind to them, and they were asking them for little bits of land, and they gave it to them. And then what they realized was that they kept asking them for more and more land, and they started getting a bit more defensive over the land that they have. And it was them. They started like a little. When you look back, they started like a war against them, and they nearly won. They nearly pushed out all the Palestinians that they were just fed up of being in that situation. So most of them left. So it was actually Israel who was bent on getting that place for themselves. They started the war, and they tried, and they nearly got all the Palestinians out. So they were really the ones who started this whole thing. And when we talk about Hamas goes right back to 1929. They were people called the Mufti. They are people from this same group. And when you look at the leader who started this in 1929, he looked almost white. And he noticed that all this stuff was going on, and he was very bent in getting back and getting. And this is where the hatred started and getting deeper, because he made a friendship with what's the name of that leader of Adolf Hitler. He made a friendship of him, and he wanted to understand how he because he knew he hated the Jews, and so he made up this friendship with Adolf Hitler to find out from him what could he do to get rid of these Jewish people. And I won't go into it because you're taking the lesson, but to take to put it in the future now through Hamas, that when they found some of these Hamas people, because Adolf Hitler wrote this book called Mein Kampf, right? It's an evil book. And then when they found one of these Hamas soldiers, they found that they were actually reading this book called Mein Kampf. So they're trying to take that hatred, that evil, into their own, their own establishment, their own thing that they set up. Because, this is what I wanted to say, really. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like adding on to what you're saying, Debbie, the reason why the Israelites felt that they were entitled to that land is because for them, it is their ancestral land. Like everyone is entitled, like a home, to say, this is my home. Like for me, for instance, I might say I can go to Zimbabwe anytime that I want to, and I'm entitled to live wherever I want to live, because that's my country. So this is what the Israelites have in the back of their mind. They would say, no, Palestine is the land of our ancestors. So we are not welcome here where we are in Europe. We are facing so much persecution. So what's the point of living here anyway? We have a home where we can go back and live. So that's why they had gone back to Palestine and occupied. And at first, like what you're saying, there were no like fightings. But as they started to grow bigger and bigger in numbers, remember I said there were different waves. We had the first wave that started in the 1800, and the second wave 1903, and the third and the fourth. So there were more and more Israelites now coming back into Palestine. And obviously, when the Arabs were living there, when they saw these people now streaming in their numbers, it didn't go well with them, because definitely they knew that when these people have grown into numbers, what exactly are they going to do? They might take over their freedom, their land, and everything. So in a way, at first, they would live side by side. There were no conflicts. But then the conflict was sparkled by this 1902 event when a Jewish guard was shot. And that's when the whole thing exploded. So from there on, it has been conflict after conflict. And this is what we're experiencing even in the end of 2023 and now in 2024. So I want to look at the events of October 7, 2023. Yeah, if anyone has something to say, feel free to say something. I just want to.
It seems like there's I've just been reading an article in The Guardian about why Israel don't want a two-party state. It seems there's a lack of trust on both sides. Because there's a lack of trust because at the moment the Israelis are military occupying Palestine, the Palestinians. So they are in charge of the Palestinians, even though Palestinians have a government. It's heavily leaned on the Israeli side so that they are in control, they get the jobs. It's been described as an apartheid system where the Palestinians are kept under control. So Israel doesn't want a two-party state because this will give Palestine more power. And they don't want to be alongside Palestinians when they're surrounded by Arab nations, presumably they're under threat. But they have the West on their side, it seems, Israel. So if neither do the Palestinians want a two-party state because it's kind of seen almost as a two-party state now, even though it isn't, because Israel rules with an iron fist. And I think they know, the Palestinians, that if they don't get, they're trying to get rid of that, it seems, from my understanding. So both sides are saying we don't want the other one to have too much power because they're abusing it. So it's quite tense, as you say.
Emma, isn't Hamas turned political now? I think they started up as a Sunni movement, but haven't they turned that into politicals? The people have actually voted them in.
Well, Melania said
as a political party.
Yeah, the political party in Gaza, aren't they? The main political party in Gaza. Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you, Melania. Oh, it's all right.
Sorry, I muted. I was just to dial. All right. All right. I'm going to look at the events of August 7, 2023. Oh, October. It's October. So can someone just briefly summarize what is it that happened on October 7, 2023? Anyone with an idea?
They attacked, sent a nuke over to Israel. They attacked Israel, didn't they?
Okay. I want to try and put my body at the center again. Okay, yeah. So can you come again, Debbie?
They attacked Israel. It was out of the blue. They weren't expecting it.
Okay, yeah. It was a surprise attack,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So yeah, this is what happened. So on October 7, 2023, Hamas launched an operation. I can't pronounce the word exactly. It's out. Let me write it. Otherwise, I'll say something else. Right. Yeah, that's the name of the launch that they did. I can't pronounce that one. I can only pronounce flood. It's Al Aqsa flood. I don't know. So this was a surprise.
Al-Qaeda.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie.
No, it's
So,
not.
sorry.
No, sorry, I don't think it's Al Qaeda, but it's the name of their operation. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
No, I didn't say Al-Qaeda. I said Al-Qaeda.
Oh, Qaeda. Sorry, I didn't hear that properly. Go on.
Okay, okay, that's fine. So this was a surprise attack. So it's a name given to what they've done on October 7. So it's a surprise terrorist attack against the Israel southern Gaza border. Over 800 rockets were launched towards Israel, which was followed by 3,000 Hamas fighters invading Israel and attacking the military sites. And all cities living close to the border were attacked. Over 1,000 Israelites were killed, and most of them being civilians, and an additional of 253 were taken hostage. Hamas claimed that the attack was a necessary step and a normal response to confront all Israelite conspiracies against the Palestinian people. Israelite government claimed that during the attack, Hamas committed war crimes such as torturing their victims. However, Hamas said they did not commit such crimes. The conflict has been the worst in the recent history, and it does not show any signs of being resolved anytime soon. So when you look at what happened on October 7, these people has been fighting each other for years now. And we saw that there have been like many attacks, be it the Israelites attacking the Arabs or the Arabs attacking the Israelites for long in this history. But now, what happened last year on October 7, there's been a ceasefire, there have been some silence, there have been some peace for long, and they were just quiet. But then the Arabs, the Hamas group, they just decided to attack Israel unknowingly. Israel didn't expect this. So they just attacked, and we heard that over 3,000 soldiers of the Hamas, they marched into Israel in doing this attack. And they sent a lot of things, and they took hostages. This was one of the worst of their attacks that they've done. So the Israelite government, they declared that the Hamas group has committed war crimes, but the Hamas said, no, we didn't do this. So it's like, it's an information war, if you might want to take it that way, because the other side is saying this and the other side is saying this. So when you're just looking at these things, you don't have all the facts on the ground, you will be caught in a dilemma who to believe, because these are saying that and these ones are saying that. So some countries had to intervene and to look at this information. So different states is to give their own like side of the story and say, oh, Hamas has done this. Some are saying Israel has done this. So in a way, if you look at this whole scenario, it's now a proxy war. It's not that the Hamas and the Israelites are fighting each other. It's now the whole world fight. It's now a world war, but then it is being fought with these two parties on behalf of the whole world, if you know what I mean. So it's like a proxy war. Some countries of the world, they are siding with the Israelite nation, and some are siding with the Palestinians. So now it's now maybe one side attacking the other, like different countries, they are fighting through this proxy of the Israelites and the Hamas. So after this surprise attack with by the Hamas, the Israelites could not just sit and fold their hands and watch Hamas doing whatever they were doing. So they had to retaliate. And this is how they retaliate. So after Hamas attack on Israel in early October, Israel had to retaliate on October 17, 2023. So this is October 7, 10 days later, this is what the Israelites did. Israel attacked the largest hospital in Gaza, which is known as the Al-Fisher Hospital. Gaza has also been using it to shelter tens of thousands of displaced people. This bombing killed many people and injured some, including people who had been seeking shelter. Reports of the number of the fatalities vary widely. The Gaza Health Ministry reported 342 injured and 471 killed. The Anglican diocese that manages the hospital reported that 200 people has been killed. The U.S. intelligence agencies assessed a death toll between 100 to 300. So it was only these 10 days later, on October 27, that the Israelites began an invasion on the ground. Israelites' retaliation attacks against Gaza has killed around 25,000 people. And now Palestine accuses Israel of war crimes. So we are talking of 25,000 people killed. And we don't know how many has been killed after this study has been done. So these people have been killed in Gaza. So in Gaza. And this is just a retaliation that was done on the 27th of October by Israel. They were fighting back. So after this fight back, what happens now? Palestine is now accusing Israel of war crimes. And if you have heard from what I've been reading, it seems that most of these people that has been killed, they're just mere civilians. You see, they're not soldiers. Yes, soldiers were killed and stuff like that. But most of these people, they're just mere civilians. They're just suffering something that they know nothing about. They're not even actively participating in this fight, but these are the ones that suffer the huge losses. So the reason why I had to look at this study is because of this part here. When we have so much fatalities, so much of the civilians that has suffered because of these things that has been done. So if you look at these people, most of them are civilians, but of these civilians, if you look at the nature of the like the society of the Israelites or the Palestinians, do we have women who join the army in Palestine? In this Hamas group, do you have any women who are part of the Hamas group, the fighters, or the Israelite issue, or do we have more women in the army?
I'm not sure there's female fighters in Hamas's soldiers, but there definitely is in the IDF for Israel. Loads of female soldiers.
Okay, thank you for that. So if you are looking at this, so let's take it to be.
Sorry, Melanie.
Yes.
You mean Hamas?
Mm-hmm.
No. Hamas doesn't have women. Hamas is strictly male.
Male. Why?
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
It is because according to the Sunni belief system, they don't put women at that level. You see, women are supposed to be at home taking care of children. Yes, Natalie, thank you for that word. They are sexist. You see now. So according to their law, women cannot join the army. They don't belong there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gina. So yeah, that's very true. The Sunni are the Muslim. It's a Muslim group. It's a radical Muslim group. They believe in the Sharia law. So they use the Sharia law to suppress women. So to them, women are not supposed to join the army. Their place is in the kitchen. If we look at the Israelite law as well, do they allow women soldiers to join their army? Do we have female soldiers in the Israelitish army?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see who said yes.
I did. Sorry, Debbie.
Yeah, it's Debbie. Can you explain, Debbie? Right now, as the fight is going on, Do we have any female like soldiers in the army?
Why is there females? I don't know why there's females in there. I know that there is because I've seen them on TV, on the screen here when I was looking at some YouTube. But I know they've got them in there. But I don't know. I mean, well, I mean, they're not. Even though they've got, I would say they're not. They've got secular Jews there. They've got Orthodox and they've got non-Orthodox. All these type of things. I can only assume that these particular women don't join the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox side of things. They've got to be secular. That's the only way they're going to be able to join the army, I would say.
Okay, so can we just, if you are making proportions, can we have the same proportion of the women and the men in the army, like to say 50-50 or 70% women and 30% men?
I would definitely say less.
Less, yeah. So it's more like a rare case, if I may say. If there are women there, it's just a small percentage of women joining that army. But looking at the Jewish understanding of the women, how they take women to be in an Orthodox way, the women are supposed to be in the kitchen, taking care of the kids, doing whatever is done at home in a private sector, not in the public like this. So if we see that this number that we have of 25,000 people killed in Gaza, and we know that there in Israel, there were many that were killed on the 7th of October. And if we look at that number, most of them are women and children. And the statistics that has been taken is about 70% of them we have been affected by this are women and children. And why is it like this? Remember at first, Natalie, I have drawn the line of the 144,000 and the other of the Millerite history. And I've elaborated that these two lines, the Millerite history, it is the one that reflects our line, and our line, the line of the 144,000, it is the Omega history. So I'm going to put a rough sketch of it here. Let me remove my 100%, my 70% from that. So this is the time at the end, 1989, the second waymark, 2001. We have the Sunday law, we have the COP, and we have the second advent. Okay, let me just save my charger. Okay, so this is the line of the 144,000. And like what I've said, this is our experience. So we have seen that this group, it started here, the Hamas. This is when we have the leader who started the Hamas group here in 1989. And when you get to 2001, the conflicts are always there between Palestine and Israel. And as we are moving forward, we said we have got Rafah, which is 2019, and we have Paniam, which is 2021. 2021. And the conflicts are still on. So where are we right now? We are here in the agitation of the Sunday law. So during the agitation of the Sunday law, during this time, this is when we are seeing these events of October 7 and the October 27 happening in this place in Palestine. But is this only a Palestinian thing? No, because the whole world is involved in that conflict. We have others who are siding, who are pro-Israelites, and we have others who are pro-Palestinian, like the Hamas side. For example, we have Qatar. Qatar has actually come out in support of Palestine, and Qatar has actually been making some negotiations for some people. We have been for some hostages to be released by Israel, by the Arabs to Israel, the Israelite hostages that were kept by the Hamas. So you see that in doing this, and there are some countries, especially European countries, they are in favor of the Israelitish nation. So in other words, we have the whole world coming together, and it's a fight of the world. The world is fighting, but in the context of Israel, in the context of Palestine, if I may say. So in this war fight, the people who are suffering the most, it's not the soldiers, it's not the Israelites president or anyone who's leading them, or the Hamas leader or anyone. The most people who are suffering here, 70% of them who are suffering are women and children. If you look at the hostages, if we look at those who were bombed at the hospital, there were children there. I remember at one point I was looking at this, you know, as this video, there were women who were waiting to give birth, and they gave birth to their children. And of all those children that they gave birth to, about more than 50% of them, they died. You know, like you are just giving birth to a child, then in no more time, like less than a day or so, the child is gone. Because
Melania.
yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, you know, like you've got the different people who are supporting, are on different sides. You've actually got Jewish ultra-Orthodox Jews who are non-Zionists who are actually supporting Palestine. They're against the Balfour Declaration. They said that they never agreed to that. They were pushed into that. So when they came out supporting the Palestinians, which they've not long done in London, I was watching them. It was ultra-Orthodox Jewish people who were pro-Palestine.
Sorry, I was muted. So it's not that someone is Jewish, like location or tribe that I'm Jewish, so that I can support the Israelites, or because I'm Arab, I can support the Arabs. It's all because of the ideologies. It's all because of weighing information. This is why we are in an information war. It's like getting the information and how you get to weigh the information and make a decision and take a side. But the whole issue here is mostly centered on the agitation of the Sunday law. We are soon approaching the Sunday law. As a movement, are we seeing something there? What is it that we are supposed to learn from these external events? I remember in the last meeting, somebody asked a question about the external events and the movement, the message. What's the link between the two? Honestly, I don't have like an answer to say this is the answer, but from this study, I've seen that when you are looking at the external events, they're telling us something about what we as a people of God are supposed to be doing. It's an eye-opener for us to open our eyes wide open to see what is really happening and what you're supposed to do. For me, I've just seen that this is what issue is pointing to the agitation of the Sunday law. It's showing us that the Sunday law is nearer. It's just before us, and we are supposed to open our eyes and see. Remember, this war is a fighting that is being done. The whole world is being included in this war, but most of the people that are suffering there are women and children. They are vulnerable, they are weak, they cannot support themselves, especially looking at the culture of the people that are involved there, of the two groups. You can tell that these people are just weak and vulnerable. So I just want to read something before I call this one in this lesson. Okay, so the Israel-Palestine conflict, it involves more than those two countries. Many countries have taken sides on the issue, with a few being directly or indirectly involved. Qatar is one of these countries. Qatar gained the favor of Hamas because of its actions in the past, such as when they accepted their exile leaders. It also has not stated publicly that the Hamas attacks are wrong, and it blamed Israel for escalating the violence. Because of this, Hamas is sometimes willing to listen to Qatar which has made the country a mediator in the conflict with Israel. Another country involved in this conflict is Iran. Unlike Qatar, Iran has directly chosen a side to support. That side is Hamas. It's speculated that Iran was involved in the October 7th terrorist attacks, although Iran denies this. But what Iran can't deny is that it gives Hamas money and helps train its fighters. Leaders in Iran has congratulated Hamas for the violence against Israel. Iran's supreme leader has said, "We kiss the hands of those who planned the attack on the Zionist regime. The Zionist regime's own actions are to blame for this disaster." Besides Iran and Qatar, other countries have spoken out on the conflict, such as Syria, Lebanon, who both blame Israel for provoking the violence. Outside the Middle East, the United States and much of Europe has sided with Israel and condemned Hamas. Russia and China haven't publicly spoken, taken a side. However, they did support a ceasefire at the United Nations meeting. So what is happening is, you see, this is like what I've been explaining. It's not like the war between these two people. It's now a world thing because it has like put together all the world in this. So in looking at this, the point that I want to come to is that when you put the line of the Millerites at the top here, 1798, 1840, here 1850 is the Sunday Law, 1861, 1863. If you look at this, the reason why the Millerite history was a failure is because they failed to look at the external events. They just turned a blind eye and an ear and blocked their ears to say, no, we are not looking into this politics. We are not doing these worldly things. Why should we do that? Because we are soon waiting for the coming of the Savior. There's no point in us fighting for these worldly things. We just need to we don't mind who's going to rule the world, what is going to happen. They turned a blind eye to the external events, which us as a movement, as the 144,000, we are to open our eyes wide open, to see this agitation here of the Sunday Law and see what is God trying to say to us so that we make the correct decision in everything that we are doing. So in this time, when the issues to do with the Sunday Law, we know that the Sunday Law right now is not a Sabbath Sunday issue. It's something to do with the freedom, equality of everyone, women, children. So we are looking at this and we are seeing that this whole conflict is much to do, is disadvantaging the women and kids. What is that supposed to mean to us as a movement? So this is what I've just looked at, and this is what I've come to see, that God is trying to say something to us. We must look and see what the external events are pointing to in this point in time when we are in the agitation of the Sunday Law, and what we ought to see and what we ought to do at this particular point in time. It's not about supporting the Hamas or the Israel thing. It's about looking at what God is trying to say to us. The human soul, every human is important. We are looking at how the violence is disadvantaging the people that are supposed to be saved, the people that are supposed to be treated with dignity and humility. So this whole thing, the Hamas and Israelite thing, the world might see it as a superiority thing to say who's superior in the world. But we as a people of God, we are looking at how human freedom, equality is being compromised by all these fights.
Melania, do you see this as an Islamic uprising at all?
Sorry, can you come again?
Do you see this as an Islamic uprising in the not too distant future at all?
No, I'm not sure about that yet. I don't know what you think, Debbie, about it.
Well, I think I was looking at Hamas and what they were doing. They're not just going to Israel now. They start. If you see what Hamas are doing now, they're actually interfering with the goods. You know, the ships. that are coming in, and I think it's anything. It's just stopping. You know, they're stopping us. They've been, you know, we've been there and trying to stop Hamas from coming in, and you know the ships that have been bringing all the goods in through that certain route. I think Hamas have been going there and trying to stop and preventing that from happening. And so, you know, it's almost like they're sort of trying to gain power now and authority by doing this, or trying to get their own way. So that's why I saw this Islamic uprising sort of taking place. I thought anyway. Do you know which part I'm talking about? You know, they've been coming. You know, these ships that bring all the goods in and that particular route. They're saying that because Hamas is there, they're going to have to take the long way around now to try and bring goods in because they've been, you know, shooting at so and so. But I think the US and the UK have been coming against Hamas and you know, nuking them. So it's not just, you know, listening to what's going on. They're actually physically getting involved in it now. You know, other countries are. So that's how I saw. I wonder if an Islamic uprising is going to happen.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie.
I did comment on what you were saying about the people were saying in the chat as well about Israeli women being in the army. And I was looking at something just now, which was interesting. I thought that on the border, on the Gaza Strip, the soldiers that were posted to the border to watch and surveillance were women soldiers. So they put the women soldiers on the border with no guns, but they were to watch cameras, security cameras, like 24/7, and then report anything that they saw. And in the weeks leading up to the attack, they were seeing activity every day they even saw a fake tank. They saw people on the other side of the Gaza Strip coming to the border and seemingly doing military exercises. And they reported all that, but they got ignored. So now, and some of them got killed, obviously, when Hamas attacked. And so it's basically, again, showing gender discrimination. So even though these women are in the army and they've got an important job of surveillance on the border, they were not taken seriously. And Israeli security kept saying, we've got it under control, but they didn't do anything. And these women are getting increasingly upset that they're not being listened to, and they're messaging on the WhatsApp groups and saying, this is every day what we're seeing, and nobody's doing anything, kind of thing. And so it really, again, shows gender discrimination in the fact that they didn't prevent what happened when they did see it coming. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting in the line of what you're saying about this. It's all connected to the gender equality issues.
Yeah, that's very true. It's all connected to issues to do with gender. Yeah, I've been just going through the messages in the chat because I haven't been checking.
I thought that happened with 9/11 as well. Yeah, I was thinking, what was it, that event where women reported and they weren't listened to? Yeah, 9/11.
Yeah. So in a way, they're just being considered as soldiers. But what do we know a soldier to be? You have to have like fighting equipment, a gun and something. If they are not given guns, how are they supposed to protect themselves when danger comes if they are regarded as soldiers?
Yeah, that's interesting as well.
Yeah. So just put
that's one regiment though. There are women on the combat with guns.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away from the point that Emma was making though.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's very true, Natalie, that this one is a nationalistic and sexist war. Yeah. Which is exactly what's fitting in the messages this particular time, that this is all about nationalism, sexism.
Aren't most wars nationalistic and sexist, I have to add? Sorry. Patriarchal system war, isn't it, really? We've seen.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have something to say? I think I'm done with the lesson.
I think that thank you, I enjoyed that, but I think it's important to look at the political side, because they are political, and even though they do terrorist acts, they are political, and a political answer is needed here, I think.
Okay. So just a question to the class. So us as a movement, are we supposed to take a side and say we are in the side of the Israelites, or we are siding with Hamas?
We are the side with the women.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
think
thank you.
that with everything that happens politically, our job is to look at the prophetic significance of it. I mean, sure, we can have moral feelings with regards to what's happening at a personal level, but when we put our movement hat on, from my opinion, our job is to look at the prophetic implications of what's happening, what's the ideology that's happening, what's the relation to the great controversy. As Natalie said, looking at, since we recognize that women's rights are a fundamental part of end times prophecy, it's looking at how women are affected and seeing that through a prophetic lens. And I think that's at the movement level. As the personal level, yeah, I think there's sympathies and moral viewpoints that we can have on both sides, but that's not your question, I suppose.
Thank you.
Yeah, something to say.
Mhm.
I think as a movement, our duty is to make sure that we are looking at the treatment of those who are the minority, those who are weak, those who are being oppressed, the poor. They are the ones that we are supposed to be concerned about. So those are the ones that, if anything happens to them, our eyes will be wide open to see what is happening to those who are weak, to those who are being oppressed. The moment that thing starts to happen, we start to see that God is telling something to us as a movement, since God has put us on earth so that we'll be able to look at those things that are leading to the end of this world. That's what I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have something to say? Contribution?
Just to echo Simba's point, I think that's a good one. It is about the minorities and the oppressed, which is often women, but not always. And I think that's the point, isn't it? That we see this in the context of a gender war or a gender inequality, but that obviously is the LGBTQ plus. It's lots of things, so it's not always at that simple level of siding with one group or one particular issue. As we know, it's very complex. But the point is, the principle of equality is to relieve oppression and lift up the minority, help those that are in need of help. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay. All right. So if there's no one else who would like to say something, I think we can pray, because this is the end of the lesson. If that's okay. Okay. So let's pray. Dear God in heaven, we thank you this morning. We thank you for the Sabbath. We thank you for the time that we've had to look at this conflict that has been happening for ages, that has been escalated in this time between the Israeli and the Palestinians. We thank you, Lord, because we know that as a people that you've put on this earth at this time of the end of the world, we are supposed to open our eyes wide. We are supposed to see what you are trying to convey to us. Help us, Lord, to have this prophetic eyesight to see the oppression of the women and the children and the minority groups in all this. We know that we are in the agitation of the Sunday law, and these issues are being spoken over and over. Lord, may you help us to be able to stand on the right side, to be able to stand rightfully where we are supposed to be. Thank you, and bless everyone who has joined the meeting, and may you help us to understand these more issues better and better. Thank you. This is my humble prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.